Hi lovely, welcome to this week's live. I'm so excited to share with you something really important this week. So it's all about what on earth is menstrual healing yoga. So if you have any questions as we go through, just feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll either get back to you in the live or later on. So first of all, we're going to start with what is menstruality, because this is sort of the foundation in a way of our menstrual healing yoga. So menstruality is the menstruator's life process. So it's going through those stages of menarche when you get your first period, and then the menstrual cycle years, going through perimenopause, menopause, and then coming into the wise woman years. So that it's this entire system of like biological, psychological, and spiritual evolution. We get all these different stages and challenges that we go through. And that might include things like pregnancy and birth as well, or it might not. Everyone's different and on a different path, but it's our whole system that we experience. And it really is the mother cycle. And what I mean by that, if you're interested in connecting with nature, is that the menstrual cycle sort of tunes us into this way of cyclical being, this cycle of rest and activity. Hey, whoever's just joined, I'm sure your name will pop up in a minute. Thanks for joining. So yes, it kind of takes us through this entire cycle, and we practice each and every month for about 35 plus 350 plus cycles, and then we get to apply those when we come into our wise woman years to things like the lunar cycle or the cycle of the seasons, or even our sleep and waking cycle as well. So if we can really master the menstrual cycle and master really optimizing our energy during ovulation and nurturing ourselves during our winter and all of these things, we can then apply that to the larger cycles that exist. So that's essentially what menstruality is all about. So moving on to what yoga really is, because it's one of the biggest things I get asked, like, oh, I love a bit of stretching. Like, yoga is so great for a bit of stretching, or isn't that all it is really, with a bit of breathing? And yes, that is a part of it. Honestly, it is. There is a bit of stretching involved, and there is a bit of breathing, but that's like 5% of what yoga is as a whole, because yoga is really a lifestyle. The word yoga means union, so it's all about uniting your individual consciousness or yourself as an individual with the universal consciousness, with everyone around you, with nature, and with the divine, if that's something that you subscribe to, or it doesn't matter if not, because even just connecting to nature and loved ones is extremely powerful. So it's all about bringing that together, and that can't happen unfortunately with just a bit of stretching and breathing. So it really is so much more than that. It's about the way that you eat is involved, the way that you interact with other people is involved. There's various meditative practices, there's the breath work, but there's also things like yoga nidra, which is almost similar to hypnotherapy. There's so much involved in the whole process, and I share all of that in my online course, Heal Period Pain and PMS with Yoga. So the course really isn't just stretching, it's this whole encompassed thing that comes down to like mental well-being and all of that as well. So if you have any questions about any of that so far, just drop me a comment below. And I think it's important to understand that there's like different styles of yoga. So we're getting a bit more into what menstrual healing yoga is now. Because in your typical traditional yoga class, you'll all be like lined up as if you're in the military, and everyone's doing the same thing, the same sun salutation. Never mind, what your body might be going through that day, whether you're bleeding, you've got ovulation pain, or whatever's going on. Maybe you're just not having a great day, and you're in autumn and emotions are really full on, and it might actually just be better for you to come down into child's pose and cry it out. So that's kind of the difference between menstrual healing, I suppose, that you're really offered these variations and options to make the practice your own. And instead of lining you all up in a line, I would always bring in an in-person class, I'd bring everyone into a circle. So we're all together, we're all on the same level. There's no, teacher that's on the stage shouting at you to, do your chaturanga or whatever. It's just all coming together in a beautiful circle to share our practice and share our healing. And I'm hoping to bring that into the virtual realm with our menstrual healing circle that's this weekend. And I think I do have a couple of spots left in circle 2, which is better for Aussies and Americans. So if you're interested in that, drop me a message ASAP, because I think I've only got a couple of spots left, I believe. So bringing it round now to what actually happens in a menstrual healing yoga class. So this is something we'll be exploring in our circle this weekend, but it's something that you can bring into your own daily practice as well. So there really is no right or wrong way to do this. So if you've been watching the last few lives, you'll know by now that yoga was created by men, and it really was a man's world, but it was inspired by women in some historical theories, and that theory makes a lot of sense to me, because there's so much that we have to do for our bodies because we are menstruators, that is so clearly replicated in the yogic texts and tried to improve upon and all of that. So just understanding that these, sun salutations and all of these things are made by men, and teachers sometimes, without realizing it, can disempower you and disconnect you from your body and what what phase of your cycle you're in, because they're just not giving you the variations or not making you feel comfortable to explore different things. And that's, that's not a hard and fast rule. There's many yoga teachers out there that are doing this beautifully. And they're not doing it on purpose when they're doing it wrong. It's just that during your yoga teacher training, you're not really taught these things a lot of the time about women's bodies. So it's something you have to go off and learn by yourself, and not everyone comes across that information, and that's okay. But it's a bit of a shame, because women do love yoga so much. Most practitioners are women. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're menstruating, you've got menstrual fatigue, and you're being asked to do 4 or 5 sun salutations in a row, and you're just there thinking God, I would love to just lie down in shavasana and do a yoga nidra, and knowing as well, if you're in touch with your spirituality, your woman's intuition, that would actually be the best time to do a yoga nidra and to go really deep into your meditative practice, because the mind is so much more relaxed, and the veil between worlds is very thin at that time, so we're able to access different states much more easily. So it doesn't really make sense necessarily to do a load of sun salutations unless you're one of those people that finds that exercising really helps with your period pain and your mood and your emotions while you're bleeding. In that case, awesome, do your sun salutations, and there's no right or wrong about that either, but the point is that it's your choice, and you need to listen to your body and decide what's good for you on any given day. And that's, a real foundation of what menstrual healing yoga is all about. The problem with, some of the meditation is that, or the asanas, is that it can actually, make you feel kind of disrespected, or even dismissed a little bit, because I know when I was doing my yoga teacher training, I'd ask, I'm on my period, is there anything I should do differently? And the answer was basically just sit out for 3 days, or you're fine, don't worry about it, just keep going. So that's kind of your options. You either just keep going as if nothing's happening, or you're just told to sit out. And it's kind of this, as I've already talked about, there's so many other things that I could be doing. Can you not prescribe something to me that's going to help? So that's what I'm trying to bring about, really. But just to talk a little bit now, so that's essentially the what of what menstrual healing yoga is. So now really going into the why are we doing it all? So one of the biggest things is releasing muscle tension and joint pain. Of course, while you're on your period, or just before, when you're really struggling with cramps, all of the different poses are kind of going to move things around the body and or especially around the lower abdomen and the yoni in the back, and just help to ease some of that pain, release some of the tension, and allow the prostaglandins to do their work to help the blood flow through you. But it's not just about when you're on your period, it's about the rest of the month too. So if we just try and do asanas when we get cramps, we'll get a little bit of relief, but it's not going to be preventative measure as such as when you are doing it on a daily basis. Preferably that'd be amazing, but even just a few times a week throughout your entire cycle, you'll find that the cramps lessen massively because you're constantly releasing any tension there, allowing it to flow through, and eventually the cramps stop coming because that area is just all loosey-goosey and ready for anything to happen. So moving on to balancing hormones. So this is a big part of the practice. We'll always include lots of back bends, just because it helps to stimulate the adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys. And we'll also be moving a lot with the hips. So, some of it even feels a bit like belly dancing, but the point of it is to really stimulate the ovaries as well, and even get your hands on and give yourself a massage. I'm subconsciously doing it now, because your ovaries produce hormones as well. So anything we can do to help the production and also calm down cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. Everyone knows that yoga is very relaxing, so it's no surprise that it reduces stress, which reduces cortisol. And the problem with cortisol is that it blocks the effects of progesterone, which is the hormone that really helps us out in our inner autumn. So when that's being blocked, all kinds of mayhem go on, as I'm sure you may have experienced. So reducing stress is really important as well. So it calms down the nervous system, and this is one of the most important aspects of the healing side of things, because we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is kind of our rest and digest mode, and then we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight mode. And unfortunately, in modern society, so many of us are constantly living in fight and flight mode. Everyone struggles with anxiety. Work life is crazy, getting home is crazy, there's no support or community around to help out with kids, or whatever's going on. There's just so much in modern life that really flares up that fight or flight response, and you're just constantly on alert, especially if you're a mum as well. Unfortunately, well, I don't know if unfortunately is the right word, but there's a real instinct that kicks in after you have a child that really makes you hyper vigilant, and it's difficult to switch off even when you're really, really tired, because it's constantly all about protecting the baby and making sure there's no tigers around or anything that's gonna attack the child. So it's even more important if you have had a child to really engage the parasympathetic nervous system. And the reason for that is that the body can only heal when it's in that rest and digest mode. Because when it's in fight and flight mode, all the blood and the energy in the body goes to the muscles, and the heart beats faster, the breath quickens, and anything that's going to really help you get going. So all of the blood gets taken away from things like your digestive system, your reproductive organs, which means that it's just so difficult for the body to heal in that state, really. And it's really interesting, actually, that some people can have like the worst diet in the world, like you've ever seen, like the traditional, well, not traditional, but the Italian diet of lots of carbs and wine, and meats, and the French as well, cheeses, and all this stuff that's bad for us. But they're such chillers, they're such wonderful communities to live in because of the the relatedness to each other and sitting with each other and having a glass of wine, that they're in such a relaxed state all the time that they tend not to have very high rates of disease or cancers or anything like this, because they're constantly in this rest and digest mode, and the body can handle it. It can handle the bad foods so much better, and not allow them to create all these different problems that we experience in the standard American diet or the Western diet. So very interesting. And so the next thing, is reconnecting to the body and to the yoni. So this is a really crucial aspect of menstrual healing yoga, because yoga in general will bring us into the body. The whole idea is to really feel into the poses, or as you're breathing, you're really connecting to the breath and feeling the air come down to the stomach and back up again. And eventually, that taps into feeling the energy moving up and down the spine. So we're really getting in touch with the body. But what it doesn't always focus on is reconnecting with the yoni. So that's something that I really strongly bring in. It's constantly bringing the awareness back to the womb, back to the yoni, back to the lower abdomen. Even when we're breathing into the yoni, or a lot of the movements are centered around the yoni. And then when we do our yoga nidra, our hypnotherapy, or our breath work, or our visualizations, or whatever it is, it's always bringing the heart, connecting to the yoni, and just bringing the awareness down there. And the reason for that is that it's so important to connect the brain back with the yoni, because a lot of the time there's been some kind of sexual trauma or just general disconnection because of the way that society, most cultures nowadays, talk about vaginas. They're kind of this shameful thing that blood comes out of, and that's really gross. And the more that we hear these things, especially as young children and teenagers, the more that we're just shutting it off more and more and more, just not wanting to know anything about it. And the problem with that is that the brain then starts to think that, that's not an important part of the body. She never thinks about it. She never interacts with it. I don't really need to be sending any nutrients or blood there. And this really has been proven in studies. You can, a funny example is if you say to your big toe every single day, all day, I hate my big toe, I hate my big toe, eventually the blood's going to stop flowing there and your toe's going to get sick. Might even fall off. So it's just bringing the awareness back down to help the circulation of blood and energy and all of that good stuff. And the final thing, the sort of why that we're doing menstrual healing yoga and how it's helping us to heal, is learning to move with the rhythms of your cycle. So we want to stop fighting against it, because that's only going to increase our pain and the emotional discomfort and all of it, and actually learn to move with it. And even if the pain's still there, we can learn to sit in the pain and enjoy all those endorphins and everything being sent around the body to help us deal with the pain. So there's so many beautiful ways to interact with the cycle, as I've spoken about so many times now in the group. But it's just really helping you to move with your cycle instead of fighting against it. And one of the main ways that I share that in my course is having practices for spring, practices for summer, practices for autumn and winter. But then I've also got ones that are for mind and body in those different phases, and a bit more upbeat, because your energy changes throughout your cycle. Even when you're meant to be in the high of your summer, you might be feeling super chill, or you might be, coming to the end of your winter and feeling a bit more upbeat. So whatever it is, I've got the mind and body ones, and then I've got the energy and spirit ones, which are much more focused on breath work and yoga nidra, hand mudras, all that kind of stuff. Just to help you really sit down and connect on the days, throughout your cycle, whatever season you're in, where you're feeling like you don't want to move around loads. Maybe you've already done a workout that day, or you've just had a big one. So you've got those different options. You've got, even just in the beginner stages, you've got those 8 different options. And then obviously there's the higher stages as we go through and we improve throughout the course. That just goes on and on, really. So there's just so many different options, and the reason for that is that you can really create your own practice. And this is something you can do outside of the course as well. You can look into the #Movement Monday posts and create your own sequences for different phases of your cycle. And you can always reach out to me as well if you'd like any advice on any of that stuff. So and just to make it clear, it's not just about bleeding. So if you did want to attend the Menstrual Healing Circle this weekend, you don't have to be in your inner autumn or at the start of your winter to really reap the benefits, because It's about learning these tools and these practices and preparing your body throughout the entire cycle, so that when you come to your bleed, it's so much more natural and easy to relieve the pain, relieve the stress, because it's something that you're used to doing anyway. It's about reconnecting the love with the Yoni, with heart to Yoni meditations. And yeah, it's about enjoying the different phases as well. So when we come into our spring, it's not all just focused on, we've got to practice yoga in our spring because we're going to get pain in our autumn or winter if we don't. No. Don't think that. It's all about in spring just learning to play and move with that playful energy and just really enjoying experimenting with different poses and exploring. And then when you come into your inner summer, the poses and the techniques are all about expressing that sexual energy and the estrogen that's coming through your body and moving in a very different way than you did when maybe the poses are a little more childlike in the spring. So yeah, it's not all about bleeding at all, and I hope that's come across as well in the group. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And just emphasizing sort of the how we get into this now. So that was all the why we do it. So how you can go about it, as I said, is to look into the Movement Monday posts, create your own practice, or that can be a great source of inspiration. Or you might be a really creative person and just want to sit down in your spring for a minute before you start your practice and just think, okay, where's my energy today? Do I need a mind and body practice? Do I need an energy and spirit practice? Do I need to play around with certain poses? Or do I need to do some inner child work because something's come up really strongly in that phase, which it often does in our spring because it's so related to our adolescence and our childhood years. Excuse me. So yeah, just really taking a note of where you are in your cycle, and then cycle tracking obviously becomes so important within that as well. So you know where you are, and it's just easier you use the framework of the seasons to tap into what practices might be good or better or not so good on any given day. Okay, well, I hope that all makes sense. And if you'd love to learn more, as I said, check out the Menstrual Healing Circle this weekend. Drop me a message. Circle 2's got a couple of spots left, so I'd really love to see that filled out and share with you all of these practices. So we're going to be moving through some feminine yoga and just learning the tools to help us heal, as well as sharing with each other all about, our healing struggles, our healing wins. You'll learn a bit more about me and my journey as well. But don't worry, I won't be talking the whole time. I'll be handing it over to you guys quite a lot as well. And it's just so beautiful and powerful really to sit and connect with like-minded women and go through this whole journey together, because it really is a bit of a wacky one out there at the moment, as I'm sure you're all more than aware. So coming together would be absolutely beautiful. I'd love to share that with you. And the times for that are in the post above, so you can check that out. I believe that Circle 2 is at 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 3 p.m. in Eastern Daylight Time. No, it's 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time and 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So that's in America. So yeah, I'd love to see you there. Let me know if you'd like to join. Just drop me a message. And I will be here at, I think, a different time next week. I'm feeling kind of a new chapter coming along in the group. So there's probably going to be a few little changes going on, and I'm definitely going to be jumping on live next week, but maybe at a different time with a slightly different theme that's going to be more targeted towards helping us heal. So I'm very excited for all of those changes to come. Look out for those. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining. Drop any questions in the comments and I'll get back to you soon. Bye for now.